The frontier areas of Finland and Russia feature a mosaic of forests, mires and waters. This landscape is part of the Fennoscandian Greenbelt, the largest and most important of the remaining areas of pristine nature in Western Europe. In the Kainuu and Koillismaa regions, there are several valuable Natura 2000 protected areas belonging to the Green Belt that have for the most part remained in their natural state. However, in some of the areas there are traces of previous forestry operations, such as drained mires and managed forests. The Greenbelt Life Nature project, funded by the European Union, strives to improve the quality of these areas. The aim of nature restoration is to speed up the process of bringing ecosystems closer to their natural state. Restoration methods include increasing the amount of decaying and charred wood and the number of deciduous trees, as well as enhancing the structural diversity of forests. Restoration results in greater diversity in the age and species of trees, and it also improves the living conditions for endangered species. Moreover, restoration promotes the survival of game species. The diverse forests and mires are habitats favored particularly by grouse. Restoration is a way to increase the value of conservation areas. When forests and mires are restored, it's also important to respect recreational values, take account of the scenery, and protect the cultural heritage. Forest fires are an integral part of the life cycle of northern boreal forests. Dry, pine-dominated forests have been affected by forest fires once or twice a century, and so have spruce forests at irregular intervals. A forest is never completely destroyed by a fire. Part of the trees survive on unburnt patches, or are left standing with their trunks blackened but their crowns green. These days, forest fires are rare, which is why forests in conservation areas are restored through controlled burning. Part of the trees die, thereby providing a delicious meal for species that depend on dead and charred wood, especially many rare and endangered beetles. Studies are conducted to monitor changes in the species of insects living in burned areas. The first species dependent on burned wood find their way to a new feeding ground within a few hours of a fire. Jewel beetles and powder post beetles are examples of typical species living in burned trees, while charred birch stands are favoured by coal fungi and scarce fungus weevils which thrive on coal fungi. After that, woodpeckers arrive to feast in the burned trees. New life soon begins to emerge from the charred ground. Deciduous trees gradually turn the forest green once again. Trees always suffer various degrees of damage in forest fires, so they also die and decompose at different times. This results in a temporal continuum, thanks to which rot fungi and insects have suitable nourishment and places to live at all times. In Finnish conservation areas, sites have been chosen where forest is burned at regular intervals. These national so-called fire continuum areas safeguard the survival of species that depend on and favour fire. The controlled burning of forests in conservation areas will continue in the future. These measures are the responsibility of the Natural Heritage Services of Metsähallitus, which manages the conservation areas. Decaying wood is added to such forests in conservation areas that require restoration. Pristine forests may contain multitudes more decaying wood than commercial forests. Before forest restoration, even conservation areas may have a shortage of holes suitable for willow tits and other hole nesters. In a forest that has been allowed to develop undisturbed, decaying wood may account for as much as 1/3 of all the trees. Decaying wood is an integral part of the natural cycle of a forest. When clearings are created as a result of storms, heavy snow, forest fires, and damage caused by insects and fungi, the forest structure is further diversified. Clearings provide space for young trees to grow. The decomposition of wood also returns nutrients back to the soil. Decaying wood is added by, for example, bringing down large trees using excavators. The purpose of this is to imitate the marks left by storms. Another restoration method is girdling, which causes a standing tree to decompose gradually. Girdling is a process whereby bark is removed from around a tree. Trees can be damaged through the use of a chainsaw, different types of bark peelers and axes, and, in special cases, even by blowing up trees with small charges. Decaying wood is home to many types of bracket fungi and other rot fungi. They often specialize in decomposing certain species of trees in particular stages of decomposition. Rot fungi also have fun, descriptive names, one example being coral tooth, which is a fungus found in the forests of Kuhmo. Mosses, many of which are endangered, also depend on decaying wood. Sickle-leaved hook moss is a species commonly found in forests, but many other mosses are rare inhabitants of old-growth natural forests. The structure of a former commercial forest can be made more diverse by cutting down individual trees and making small clearings. The creation of small clearings in planted forests gives young deciduous trees the opportunity to start growing and gradually develop into large trees which enrich the forest structure. This method can also be used to increase the number of aspens, which are important for biodiversity. All restoration measures bring more work to local lumberjacks. Especially in the wintertime, many lumberjacks need extra work. Part of the restoration of forests and mires consists of the reforestation of forest roads no longer needed in conservation areas. This reduces unnecessary traffic and makes the areas more peaceful, benefiting both animals and nature lovers. The reforestation of forest roads also frequently improves the water balance of the area, as the ditches bordering the roads and channeling the water disappear with the roads. The Greenbelt Life project also includes building artificial nests for golden eagles in order to make their lives easier. During eagle migration, white-tailed eagles heading towards Russia can also be encountered in the area's mires. Common cranes and bean geese are typical birds in the mires of the Kainuu and Koillismaa regions. A major part of the mires in the conservation areas are in their natural state, but there are also drained mires in need of restoration. Mire restoration involves restoring the high water table typical of the mire that has been lowered through drainage. In connection with mire restoration, it is often possible to restore the original natural brooks by redirecting the water into them. During restoration, excess trees must be removed from drained mires to prevent excessive evaporation. If the mire used to be open, all trees are removed. When spruce mires and pine bogs are restored, part of the trees are left where they are. After the removal of trees, ditches are blocked completely or dammed properly to prevent excessive water flow from the mire. Over time, ditches would often become blocked by vegetation on their own, but then it could already be too late for many mire species. For this reason, the restoration is accelerated. The results of mire restoration are usually clearly visible. Studies show that cloudberries and cranberries in particular return quickly to restored mires. The recovering layer of sphagnum moss and other mire vegetation, flowers included, attract butterflies and other insects that specialize in these plants. The black grouse and willow grouse also enjoy restored open mires. Mires located in conservation areas are also favored by wild forest reindeer, which prosper in the backwoods of Kuhmo. The effects of mire and forest restoration are monitored carefully. Follow-up studies are carried out to examine changes in the species of the area and the structure of the tree stand after restoration. Changes taking place in the surrounding areas are also studied, as the conditions in these areas have an effect on how well the original species, which have often declined, are able to return to the restored area. Follow-up studies are needed to enable the use of methods that are the most feasible ecologically and economically. At the same time, practices that have been found to be erroneous or unproductive can be changed. In the Greenbelt project areas in the vicinity of the Russian border, the areas to be restored are vaster and more species-rich than in other parts of the country. This is why the goals of restoration can also be set higher. For these restoring mires and forests, cooperation with local residents is important. When everyone understands what the restoration of nature means, cooperation goes more smoothly. The results of successful restoration benefit both nature and people.